Happy Friday, everybody. It's Jim as Amadeus. And Amadeus, a lot of soccer championships that people will be glued to the TV set for. And, what? Obviously, the UEFA Championship on Sunday. That's going to be for those of you uh, who need to know where you can watch that. That's going to be on CBS and Paramount Plus. They're starting their coverage at 11 a.m. So begin to check things out then. And the game will kick off at 3 o'clock Eastern Time here on CBS. And of course, it's going to be held at Wembley in London. I think it's Wembley 3, if I'm not mistaken. Uh, it is. So there you go. All right. So your thoughts on that? And there's one big South American, or not a South American, but a North American, South American deal coming up as well.
Yes, tomorrow is the big day, and I just want to clarify. You said Sunday. The game is tomorrow,
Oh no,
Saturday.
you're right. You're right. I'm sorry.
Everything else you said, just for the viewers, everything else. Jim
Mhm.
said, "Go catch it. It's tomorrow, though, so don't tune in on Sunday and miss it." But
And watch the replay. Yes.
yeah, CBS coverage. 11 a.m. tomorrow. The game starts at 3 Eastern time, so you get those 4 hours in, and this is the day. This is the day we've all been waiting for. The domestic leagues in Europe have pretty much finished. I mean, there are some stragglers that need a makeup match here and there. Like I think Fiorentina still has to play after losing in their second straight conference league final, which is pretty impressive to me. But yeah, this is it. This signals the end of the season and the beginning of the off season, really. But it won't be much of an off season because 2 weeks from now we'll have the Euro Cup, and then a week after that the Copa America starting. So that'll be fun. I'm sure we'll start talking more about that on Monday. But as for now, we got this big Champions League match tomorrow in London. Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid. Real Madrid is a minus 163 to beat them in the 90 minutes. The total is 2.5. It's not a 3, which is a little surprising, and it's minus 138 to the over, so a little juice to the over. But yeah, Real Madrid is a big favorite. I said they were minus 163 to win. That's in the 90 minutes. They're minus 334 to lift the trophy. So that would include if the game went to extra time or penalties or anything like that. You can get Dortmund to lift the trophy at plus 250. So a lot of value there. And Jim, this is a Dortmund team. We've been watching them for a
Yeah.
few weeks now. I've watched a lot of their matches, and uh, this has really been the dark horse of the tournament, and they're very sound defensively. I find in their matches, like they when they've had the home advantage and they needed to score goals. Specifically, there was I forget who it was against, but in one of the previous rounds, they were down going into the second leg at home, and they found the goals. Yeah, I think it was against Atletico Madrid, but they're a team where they find the goals when they need them, but defensively they've been very sound in the tournament. And I really do think I've been high on these German teams this year. I thought Bayern Munich was going to win the tournament, but Dortmund has turned out to be the real surprise. Now they're not going to have it easy here because Real Madrid is obviously, they're Real Madrid. They won the La Liga title this year, so they were the best team in Spain. And last year was really more of a retooling year for them. Obviously, we saw iconic players like Benzema leave the team, and they started to shift more from the older players to a much younger squad this year. Even some of their older players like Toni Kroos and Luka Modric, who stayed on the team, served more of a bench role as the young kids like Jude Bellingham, who they signed, and obviously Vinicius and Rodrigo are always there. Fede Valverde, Camavinga. You're starting to see a much younger midfield there, and it's helped them because you get I've found that they would start these players and they have the energy, obviously, and the legs to go far as they're at their young age, But then as the match went on, the substitutions were very smart with this team because you would start to bring in around the 60th minute. They would bring in Modric and Cruz and some of those older players who, maybe they don't go the full 90 minutes, but now you're getting fresh with 30 to go. And they have the experience, right? These are obviously players that have won the Champions League before. So that's huge. They have the experience on their side. And the other thing with this Real Madrid team is they've never lost when they went to a Champions League final. So that's something to think about as well. I believe they're 8-0 when making the finals.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is a very good Real Madrid team, but I think this is a good Dortmund team. I don't think they're as big an underdog as people think they should be. And like I said, I've seen people trash Dortmund all the way up to this round of the tournament. Nobody really gave them a chance, and they have the quality. They really do have the quality, especially on defense and in the midfield. They play well as a team, is what it is. They have a lot of chemistry together, and it's going to be an interesting match. I think it's going to be a lot harder on Real Madrid than people think. I don't think they're just going to blow them out of the water here. I see it being more like that Champions League final we had between Man City and Inter Milan last year, where everybody was just wrote it off as, oh, Man City's winning easily. But funny enough, they were the same price. They were minus 163, so you had to bet them minus one to get a better line. And that pushed because they won the match 1-0 exactly. Inter Milan really, showed up well, and it's no surprise they won the City out this year. They're one of the best teams in Europe, I would say. Inter Milan is. So I wouldn't be shocked if we saw a similar final here because Dortmund's really been leaning on that defense this entire tournament, and you can see in the previous rounds, that's how they beat PSG in that second leg. They clung on to life with their defense, and their defense hasn't been conceding a ton of goals. And I think the way Real Madrid can score and the speed they have, that's the game plan for Dortmund to win this match. They're going to have to lean on their defense, and this could be a match that gets decided by just the one goal. I could see it being a very tight match at the end.
That's gonna be a lot of fun. And we talked about the fact that the format changed a while back, and it's kind of like we're now seeing these games being played in these beautiful stadiums in cities where these two teams are not the it's not like unless some of the London teams start winning and getting into the UEFA, it's they've moved it around, and it's basically so that the league can pick up more cash.
Yeah, and if you ask around, people will give you different answers, but personally, it's something that disappoints me. This was a recent change. It never really used to be this single leg final at a neutral
Hmm.
location. This was change was made in the last 4 or 5 years. Also, around the same time when they got rid of the away goals weight, because away goals used to be more weight. If you tied on aggregate, the team that scored more away goals would go through versus now they play extra time if it's tied on aggregate. The away goals don't mean anything. And again, away goals is a polarizing subject. Some people love it. They'll tell you that it sucks, it's gone. Other people hated it, and they say it's way better now. It's more exciting, brings more meaning to the first leg. But this is one where I'm not a fan of the single leg final. It used to be where you would get a 2 leg final, the home team getting each one. And it's more so, the fan experience, especially with the prices these days. Like, people don't want to go to England to watch their team and, have to pay for a hotel. Then I got to pay extra for the tickets as well and all the other extra, things going on there that you still have to pay for. Whereas, at least with the old style, it was more enjoyment for the fans because
Hmm.
you knew you were getting one leg at home, right? You could go right down the street, watch the team. You don't have to spend the money on a hotel or things like that. You just go and watch the game and leave, right? So I think from a fan enjoyment standpoint, they've ruined the game. And I know I'm not the only one that thinks this because, I was watching the soccer game in Argentina, the Argentina Liga Profesional, and the commentators were complaining about the same thing because Copa Libertadores and Copa Sudamericana recently did the same thing. It used to be a two-leg final, and now they do the single leg final at a predetermined location. And they were complaining about it, just how they copied Europe for the sake of copying. And basically, their point was, it's okay to copy other leagues when it works. This is something that they shouldn't have copied. It shouldn't have. It's not. It doesn't work the same well, especially in South America, because in Europe you can hop on a train and go from country to country. In South America, you can't do that. It's a much larger continent, and it's not a fully developed continent. There's a massive rainforest in the middle of it.
Hmm.
So it's not a place that's necessarily easy to travel from country to country. So that was the point they were trying to make. But you, even with the travel aspect, you can take that same point with the European final and say, people don't want to spend the money to go see their team in another country and have to pay for a hotel and things when it used to be this way where I could have watched them down the street. And even though it may not have been the final, because it's not a single match, at least I
Right.
know I got to see half of the final. And my team could have done enough damage in that leg to secure them a better spot. Or maybe it was the second leg.
Yeah, and the other thing is it can be, much more like a World Series or NBA or NHL, finals where you get to, an average fan can actually get to the game.
Yeah. And again, I know they do it because when you have such dominant teams in Europe, and let's say, it's Real Madrid making the final every year, obviously they don't want to have it at the Bernabeu all the time.
Right.
But I think it's also not fair to the fans that cheer for the team that actually made the final.
Hmm. No, it's not, and it's sometimes when the league goes for the money, they turn the fans off, and I think that's something they really have to pay attention to.
Yeah, and it just something very similar has just happened in the NBA too with Adam Silver. So
Yeah,
yeah, this
yeah,
this is what happens when they don't listen to the fans and they just go for the money. You destroy your product and enjoyment of it for the people that actually support you.
yeah, and basically, the amount of money that these leagues are getting now is borderline ridiculous. But the other part of it is that from a business standpoint, a sports business standpoint, it's you've got all these leagues. Attendance means something, and we talked about this the other day, where the English Premier League, because it's been so successful in the U.S., that means that there are more U.S. families making a trip over to see a game of whatever their favorite team is, right? Which is look great. That's fantastic. You want to grow the sport, but what it does do is it puts the burden and pressure on the people who are the rank and file who followed these teams for decades, and now they're getting priced out of the stadium, and it doesn't matter whether it's a championship game or a regular season game. You want your fans, to be able to enjoy the day, whether it's being there or going to a bar and watching it. But you definitely don't want to take the people who've been paying to get into the building and penalize them. And that, in some ways, is what's going on here with the Champions League Cup.
Yeah, and that's another great point to make because especially with this single leg final, like look, it's the Champions League final. It doesn't matter where you have it, you're going to fill the building. But the
Hmm.
problem is, you're going to fill the building with more neutrals in that kind of environment. People that just want to, oh, let's go see the Champions League final. And it takes away from the environment, the
Hmm.
home environment that you played two legs, home and home, all the way up to the final. And now you take that away just to play, this gimmick is really what it is. And as you said, you're screwing over the everyday supporter. So something about Champions League matches, especially in some of these smaller countries, but the big thing with Champions League matches, they get played on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. It is a lot harder to fill up a stadium on a Tuesday and Wednesday night than it is on a Saturday night.
Oh,
And Champions
100%.
can't take the weekend because that's when the domestic league runs. So they run it in the middle of the week. And it's
Hmm.
always been like that. And if you watch the Champions League games, unless it's like a massive club, the stadiums aren't filled in those Tuesday, Wednesday games. They're really not.
Hmm.
There's not a ton of fans in those buildings. And if it looks like it, it's usually because they're grouped up because a lot of the seats are empty. And that's the guy you're screwing over. Though you're screwing over the person that showed up there for every Wednesday match throughout the group stage, the knockout stage, when nobody else was showing up. And now he can't watch the final because he can't afford to go to England and paid for the hotel for the weekend or something like that. So again, it destroys the product and takes away of the fans' enjoyment.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, is it worth the amount of money that you get? I mean, on one hand, you're saying, okay, well, we're doing this because we're going to get, you know, a boatload of cash out of it. On the other hand, you end up not getting the boatload of cash because the fans don't care.
Yep. I think you know what? What's funny. I think we're going to find out in the NBA. Adam Silver is going to find out very soon how his decisions in this area have affected the product now.
Oh yeah, I mean it's it usually comes back to bite the commissioners when these things go sideways, and this one has every indication of going sideways.
Yeah. So I haven't found a single person that liked the idea that we're breaking up inside the NBA. So
Hmm.
the proof is in the pudding itself. We'll find out next year, but the real world example is right there. NBA fans
Yeah.
aren't happy.
Yep. And watching TV and those TV numbers are they got the contract based on television numbers. So if you're going to upset, if it were me, and it's still not, I mean, everything has not been totally 100%, you know, done deal yet. It's never a done deal until the contracts are signed. And if we learned anything, it's even not a done deal after the contracts are signed. When we saw the Big Ten screwed up and accidentally gave NBC a game that they had already given to Fox. So a championship game, and giving those things away and taking them away are not necessarily fun because that's an audience you don't want to lose. So I think that if they were wise, they would go, okay, fine, we could take and craft some sort of package of games for X amount of dollars, and and keep TNT in the mix along with Fox, along with I'm not sorry, along with NBC and ESPN, ABC, and now the streaming, through Prime Video, through Amazon. So I mean, they could come up with a four network package, but it doesn't seem to be that they're going to do that or not. So we'll have to see how that plays out. But it'll be interesting, that's for sure. Stay tuned, as they say in the business.
Oh yeah.
Speaking of Adam Silver, um, there's going to be an NBA playoff championship, folks. It's just not going to be anytime soon.
Yeah, we got the Dallas Mavericks. They kicked out the Timberwolves
Yeah.
uh, last night. So Obviously, Boston already punched their tickets, so now we're gonna get the Dallas Mavericks and the Boston Celtics on starting on June 6th in the NBA final, and probably what is going to be one of the softest finals we've had in a while.
Well, I mean, it's going to be. It may not be so compelling. Let's just put it that way. But if you think that's a problem, and it is for Mr. Silver, if the Rangers get bounced by Florida out of the playoffs, and the championship is going to be, you know, um, Dallas again, or Winnipeg, and Florida, you know, there will be people who will be searching for, you know, Korean ping pong before they start watching that stuff.
Yeah, well, there's going to be a real issue here for sure because they got the Mavericks in the NBA finals,
Hmm.
and as you said, we could have the Stars in the NHL final. And I don't know, a lot of people I've been talking to, they just not a fan of seeing all these Dallas teams. They're tired of watching Dallas winning, especially with the Texas Rangers. They won the
Right.
last World Series as well, and people are tired of it. So I will say, you don't have to worry about the Cowboys at least. So it'll end
Yeah.
after
There's some things that you know they just always stay the same.
exactly.
You don't have to worry about it. Just enjoy. Um, but yeah, I think the crazy part here is that people want to see things that are entertaining, and you know they say they don't want to see the big market teams, but then you put the small market teams in there, or the teams that nobody knows much about in there, and oh, by the way, now nobody cares about that either. Uh, so we'll see. We will see. We'll have plenty of time to we have a week before that one starts. So we'll see. But again, it's be careful what you wish for because you just might get it. And I'm sure that the TV executives who are paying the big bucks are not overly happy. But that's the way it goes. I mean, teams teams sneak into the playoffs and then they get hot and win, and you're not going to get them all the time.
Yeah.
Now, there's something I wanted to chat with you, which is totally off of the topics we've had. And at the beginning of the baseball season, you said to me that you know the Cardinals in the Central Division, even though they're having trouble, they might just get back there. And all of a sudden, you look up in the standings, and the Cardinals are right there.
Yeah, they're that kind of team, right? They get
Hmm.
hot, and we've seen it for years in this division. It would always be, Milwaukee's leading the way. And then, right around the trade deadline, here come the Cardinals. They get hot. They win 30 of their last 35, and all of a sudden they're winning the division.
Yep. And if people forget, they got guys like Paul Goldschmidt. I mean, they got talent on that team, and all of a sudden, that talent is beginning the process of coalescing.
Yeah, and in the same breath, the Cubs have been starting to regress after such a hot start to the season. So,
Does that surprise anybody?
no.
Raise your hand, folks, if that surprises you, because it doesn't me. Frankly, most of the Cubs fans, it doesn't surprise them either. So it's something that they know. It's like a seasonal thing, right? They get off to a good start. You're really enjoying yourself. By the time the beer gets cold, it's time to go back to a 500 ball club.
Well, it's like the Pirates, right?
Yeah.
Everybody loved this team coming into the season. I said I didn't quite buy it because they could be good up until the trade deadline. So they got off to that really hot start,
Hmm.
but now they've fallen off too.
There you go. It looks like what's going to happen, right? It's like something's got to give. So, all right. Speaking of something got to give, I think it's time. Would be a fun time for you to give your, you know, spots of what to look forward to tonight and over the weekend as we, wind into a fun weekend, which I hope everybody is plays it safe and enjoys it. And we're gonna have enough contests going on that they got some ticket opportunities to cash if they pay attention to what you got going on.
Yeah, make sure you check out my premium picks at bigal.com, pickadvisor.com, and theinsidersroom.com. The links are in the description below. Not a big night for me. I just got three plays up right now. One on the pitch later in the MLS. There is one MLS match tonight, and I think they moved it, though. There wasn't supposed to be one tonight. So, um, and I also have two MLB plays that you can go get. So make sure you go check that out.
Okay, and we should, and you should too. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. We'll be back and see you on Monday for Amadeus. I'm Jim. Take care, everybody.